This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Ah yes, the Europeans are at it again with their weird yet wonderful interpretations of Christmas misery. By now, most of us are familiar with the anti-Santa known as Krampus, who punishes all the naughty children by either beating them senseless or devouring them completely, depending on which country's interpretation you seek to scare the shite out of your annoying nieces and nephews. However, Finland in particular is no stranger to our main man Santa, ever since early 20th century radio presenter Marcus Raudio popularized the myth that the Korvatuntori mountain in Lapland is the home to Santa Claus, leading to a very lucrative spot for tourism ever since. That concept of commercializing Christmas will play a big part into the film we're about to discuss, as in 2010, Finnish filmmaker Jalmari Helander adapted his short film Rare Exports, the story of a corporation that tames wild Santas and exports them globally to fulfill their annual duties, into a feature-length fantasy horror. The feature film is basically a prequel to the short film's concept, by focusing on the discovery of a frozen feral Santa Claus deep within the Korvatuntori mountain, where upon its defrosting and inevitable escape, turns its setup into a surprisingly moody affair. I'm going to say this out the gate, Rare Exports isn't really a comedy despite the absurd and farcical nature of its concept. It takes itself remarkably seriously, both as a partial tongue-in-cheek satire akin to Norway's fantastic found footage flick Trollhunter, and as a committed effort to making a tense, ugly, and surprisingly poignant survival drama about poverty, capitalism, and the fractured relationship between a boy and his father. You know, typical post-war European cinema type stuff. This is one of those rare cases where I think it's best you know what you're getting into, because while it doesn't suffer from the tonal whiplash of some oddball horrors putting on a straight face to hide their conceit, if you honestly set the wrong expectations, you'll likely go through the entire film waiting for a punchline, only to be met with a stiff, brooding stare down from Finnish survivalists who don't see anything funny about a butt-ass naked Santa Claus. That said, if you're in the mood for an unabashedly cynical, albeit weirdly heartfelt commentary on surviving the coldness of capitalism and fatherhood, there's a lot to appreciate about Rare Exports. As we go along, please fire your thoughts in the comments below, including what I should cover next, and while we're on the topic, here are a few words from this video sponsor, ExpressVPN. Christmas can only mean one thing, time to watch movies. However, as horror fans, especially niche horror fans, most of you know what it's like dealing with the limitations and lack of variety on the streaming services in your country. That's why I'm going to show you a few examples of how ExpressVPN allows you, just like I, to get the most value and joy out of the services you pay for this holiday season. Think of it as my Christmas gift of wisdom to you. When it comes to Christmas horror classics, with Shudder UK I can access Christmas Evil, but with the ExpressVPN app I can select a US location from a list of 94 countries and use Shudder US to watch the ultimate bleak Xmas slasher Black Christmas. Conversely, if you live outside the UK and use Netflix, you can switch to Netflix UK to access the fun-filled creature feature Krampus, which pairs nicely with the topic of this video. Maybe you're a Disney Plus subscriber in the US, in which case switch to Canada or the UK to unlock an entirely new collection called Star, which includes the magical masterpiece that is Die Hard. And hey, after all that adrenaline-fueled chaos, why not relax by switching to Paramount Plus Australia and watch the lovable nonsense that is ELF. I use ExpressVPN all the time to discover new and exciting gems and experiment with different services to find the right escapism to suit my needs, because without a VPN, it's like sitting down to Christmas dinner but you're only allowed to eat the potatoes and sprouts, like what gives? ExpressVPN has received glowing reviews by various outlets and maintains fast internet speeds to ensure your streaming quality stays in HD. Simply go to expressvpn.com/Ryan and find out how you can get 3 months free and make the most out of what you watch this Christmas and beyond. Rare Exports begins by establishing a British-American drilling expedition known as Sub-Zero, who upon collecting geographical samples atop the Korvatunturi mountain, unearth what is known in Finland as joulupuki, or sometimes translated as Christmas goat in English. As legend would have it, according to the film, before the incarnation of Santa we know today, joulupuki was said to be a horned creature that punished naughty children every Christmas, much like Krampus, resulting in a young boy called Pietri reading too much into it and preparing himself to meet his fate as Christmas quickly approaches. Yeah, sorry to break it to you, but discovering Santa isn't real isn't the bad news. The bad news is that the real Santa is supposedly a bit of a bastard. In fact, the specific joke that kicked my childhood right in the face was when Pietri says that the Coca-Cola Santa is a hoax. If anyone knows that Holidays Are Coming hype song, you know the P in that line brought me. Pietri lives with his father Runo, a cold-hearted reindeer hunter who consistently scorns his son's innocence and attempts at love to uphold a toxic, stoic, burly, manly man act that's very slowly chipped away as the horrors intensify. Seriously, this asshole makes Kratos look like a sensitive father. He's relentlessly blunt and nihilistic, even going as far as to wish his own son would just disappear after Pietri asks him how he'd feel if Pietri did no longer exist. Yeah, he's incredibly difficult to sympathize with. The reality is, Runo's behavior is due to his severe grieving over the death of his wife, channeling his unjustifiable resentment into Pietri while trying to resist it by fulfilling his wife's motherly duties, but without the emotional support to make his son feel loved, wanted, or protected. I wasn't being hyperbolic when I said the film was cynical. There's this prevailing theme of disillusionment that's conveyed throughout, as Pietri and the other children don't see the whimsical wonderland we've come to associate with Christmas due to them being on the brink of poverty. Runo and his comrades are specifically established to own a reindeer company, which is not only suffering from financial hardship due to the residual effects of the Great Recession. I say this largely because the film released post-recession and deals heavily with the burdens of their business, but is believed to be severely disrupted by the drilling company. Runo accuses them of inadvertently killing their reindeer after discovering no evidence of wolves. However, before the group can confront the drilling company, they discover the site absent of personnel and a mysterious giant hole where something was clearly taken from. The real meat of the story begins when Runo builds an illegal wolf trap on Christmas Eve to protect his remaining reindeer, only to find a seemingly malnourished naked Santa dead below the following day. From this point, the movie takes a sudden violent turn when Runo suggests chopping up and disposing of the body with the aid of his friends, only to soon discover that the Santa is miraculously still alive. We can deduce that the reason for Santa's escape was because Pietri was responsible for creating a hole in the drilling company's fence to snoop on their operations, hence the preparations for punishment he goes through as he withholds the truth from his father. Now, here's the point about the film that might prove divisive. While that jarring decision to carve up a body seems incredibly out of place for the grounded portrayal of its characters, it does somewhat feed into their cold survival of the fittest mentality their lives are dictated by. There's a distinct moral absence, or rather disconnect, amongst the characters, as everyone but Pietri is apathetic towards the season of goodwill and kindness, representing the antithesis of what Christmases ought to symbolize. It shows them humoring the absurd extremities they're willing to go to out of desperation. It doesn't necessarily have to make logical sense given the quirks of the story. It's just a really dark joke about how blindly consumed by death Runo is in his life. While I cannot spoil the ending just yet, let's just say the payoff is essentially building towards how commercialized and opportunistic Christmas has become, and made even more apparent during a time of immense financial pressure where folks must do what they can to endure. Being vague until I talk about it, the outcome pretty much sees the characters exploit the situation for themselves to better their crippling financial circumstances, but again, this will all make sense when I eventually reveal what exactly is going on.
We have Santa Claus.
Rare Exports doesn't preach a moral lesson, by the way. If anything, it does the opposite. It takes its silly, farcical premise and, dare I say, subverts your expectations by turning it into quite a gritty watch that's so bleak to the point of being bizarrely humorous. At this point, I'm going to start getting into the horror aspects of the film before moving on to the big reveals, so prepare to have your Christmas compromised. It might surprise you to know that a fair chunk of the film actually takes place in Runo's slaughterhouse, where after Santa awakens, they can't really decide what to do with him until they learn other children in town have disappeared, with Santa being attracted to the scent of naughty children. Yep, that's a line I've committed to saying. They eventually decide to make up for lost business by literally attempting to sell Santa back to the drilling company, with the drilling company's leader Riley revealing the situation to be much more complicated than it first appeared. So I've been withholding a very crucial plot point that turns everything on its head. That's not Santa they're dealing with. It's one of his little helpers. Yep, that old man is actually an elf, with the real Santa being this nasty looking fucker they've been trying to defrost this entire time, with the local children serving as gifts for him to feed on. It's relatively easy to overlook an inconsequential point made earlier in the film by the police about the town's electric heaters all strangely going missing, and to see it actually have a payoff was pretty neat. Things only proceed to get worse when a full-on army of elves appear in all their frustratingly naked glory, turning the film into something akin to the final 10 minutes of The Thing, where the team devise a plan to stop the invasion with the limited resources they have, which, if you know where I'm going with this, means blowing everything up before the big bad can escape. By this point, I was just completely enamored by what was unfolding. I didn't think for a moment the film would go in this direction. I was expecting a light slasher-esque creature feature of sorts, so to see it turn into this? I'm genuinely lost for words. It really was one of those movies where I just went with the flow of it. I didn't overthink my expectations and eventually settled into its weird, eccentric kitchen sink ways. We do finally see Runo show love and gratefulness for Pietri, who leads the group into herding the elves into a reindeer pen as a way of redeeming himself off the naughty list, while the others blow up Santa, but of course not before stealing his antlers because profit. I guess if there was a punchline, that would be it. We see Runo and his crew then form a company called Rare Exports, which contain, train and export elves as mall and event Santas around the world. I mean, it's technically slavery, right? Because the elves don't seem to have a choice in the matter. I mean, yeah, sure, they're given a new purpose after their master was obliterated, but I couldn't overlook how dehumanizing it clearly is. Seeing Pietri and Runo finally be this happy father-son duo working together in harmony is great and all, and their community have escaped their grind and poverty, but exploiting an elderly workforce who looks so disheveled and malnourished sort of puts a bit of an awkward and hilariously dark twist on the spirit of Christmas. And that concludes Rare Exports. Who would have thought this would be my penultimate video of 2022? I'm honestly surprised we made it this far, but here we are. Hopefully we get to keep on doing this. In the comments below, please tell me what your favorite horror film or any specific media in general was of 2022. I'm curious to see if I missed any bangers, as the cool kids say. I don't get much time to see a lot of recent releases because I'm always busy making these videos. And until next week when we hit the final video, stay safe, stay away from sinister looking elves, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye.